What if everything you've been told about humility, equality, and fairness was designed to keep you weak? They told you to think like the crowd, and then mocked you for never rising above it. They taught you to be kind to all, and now you wonder why no one respects you. They told you that kings are born, not made, but they never told you that kings are forged in silence, sharpened by betrayal, and crowned by ruthlessness. Let me be clear, the difference between a king and a peasant is not blood, it is how he thinks. A peasant waits, a king watches, a peasant hopes, a king calculates, a peasant pleads for approval, a king acts as if he needs none, because he doesn't. You've been trained to think with submission, programmed to seek consensus, conditioned to announce your dreams in the marketplace, only to be laughed at by those too small to imagine them. And still you return, still you hope, still you bow. This is not kindness, this is mental poverty. Do not mistake fear for virtue. Do not mistake obedience for wisdom. Do not mistake your shackles for moral high ground. In my time, I saw men walk into palaces with a bow and walk out with a knife in their back. I saw flatterers rise and fall faster. I saw kings destroyed not by enemies, but by misplaced trust. The court is not a place for the honest. The world is not ruled by goodness. The world is ruled by strategy, and most are too afraid to admit it. If you want to think like a king, you must understand this one truth. Power is perception, and peasants think literally. They see what is, and assume it is all there is. A king sees what can be bent, what can be hidden, what can be moved behind curtains while the audience stares at the stage. Let me tell you something dangerous. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people begin to imagine. And what they imagine is more powerful than anything you could have told them. This is how kings command without speaking. This is how leaders win wars before the first strike. This is how a single glance can end an argument. But peasants, they talk, they post, they scream, they show their hand in the name of honesty and lose the game before it begins. You think clarity is noble? No, clarity is exposure. Mystery is leverage, and silence is often the sharpest blade in the room. When I wrote The Prince, I was not describing what the world should be. I was describing what it is, and what it is cruel to the naive, cruel to the loud, cruel to the man who begs for recognition. I watched nobles crumble because they sought love over fear. They thought loyalty was permanent. They mistook popularity for power. But kings, true kings, never forget that admiration is temporary, that friends are seasonal, that influence must be guarded, not given. You want to think like a king? Then let me offer you the first cut of truth. You owe the world nothing, not your story, not your wounds, not your dreams, especially not your weakness. Do not share your strategy with men who haven't earned your trust. Do not open your heart to crowds trained to tear it apart. Every man is watching, but not every man is cheering. Many wear smiles but carry envy like poison under their tongue. The king knows this. He does not beg for loyalty, he tests it. He does not offer plans, he controls the narrative. He does not reveal his motives, he lets others guess, and in their guessing they make mistakes. A peasant thinks with emotion. A king thinks with consequence. There is a difference. One asks, how do I feel? The other asks, what does this move create? The man who rules his mind, rules his world. So ask yourself, who benefits from your constant disclosure? Who gains from your predictability? Who profits from your unfiltered expression? Certainly not you. You were taught to be transparent, to be real, to tell it all. But kings understand something deeper. Transparency is a trap. It is the currency of the powerless, and the cost is always higher than you imagined. The more they see, the more they expect. The more you speak, the less they value your words. The more you give, the more they resent your power to withhold. So instead, choose silence, choose precision, choose the burden of being unreadable. The king does not move to be understood. He moves to be unpredictable, to own the rhythm of the room, to speak last, and have the final word. The world bends to the man who does not rush to explain himself, because in his silence he becomes a mirror, and what people see in that mirror terrifies them. They project their fears, their doubts, their admiration, and they never realize the king said nothing, and yet he ruled the moment. You are not born a king, you become one, in thought, in silence, in the invisible discipline. No one applauds, and if that path feels lonely, it means you are walking it right. They will tell you that power corrupts, but they will never admit how weakness seduces. The peasant does not crave power to rule others. He craves it to stop being ignored. He does not want to lead. He wants to be seen. He wants applause, validation, a crown made of compliments, and that is precisely why he will never wear a real one. You see, the moment your thinking is shaped by the need to be liked, you have already given away your throne, not to a rival, but to the crowd. And the crowd does not want kings, it wants entertainers. It wants martyrs. It wants someone to worship and then destroy. So if you think like them, you will die with them. To rise, you must detach from their rhythm. A king is not formed in noise. He is shaped in quiet rooms, behind closed doors, where doubt wrestles with decision and comfort is starved to feed discipline. He learns to make decisions that hurt and live with them. He learns that not every battle must be fought, not every insult avenged, not every truth spoken, because real thinking, kingly thinking, is not about right or wrong. It's about result. Would you rather be pure and forgotten or strategic and remembered? This is the tension most cannot bear. The peasant clings to moral high ground, but that ground never builds an empire. The king instead chooses the terrain. He moves in shadows when the sun blinds others. He bends the rules when others are trapped inside them. He understands that control is not about force, it is about belief. If you can shape what they believe, you control what they do. The mind is the battlefield, the belief is the weapon, and most men are too focused on the enemy's sword to realize their own thoughts have been conquered. Peasant thinking believes in fairness. King thinking believes in timing. Peasant thinking wants things now. King thinking waits, not because of fear, but because he knows one move too early is just as fatal as one move too late. Let me give you a truth that your teachers were too afraid to say. You are not rewarded for effort. You are rewarded for leverage. The man who works 12 hours for scraps will always admire the man who moves one piece on the board and takes everything. Why? Because power respects result, not sweat. A king is not crowned because he wants it more. He is crowned because he knew when to strike, where to pressure, and who to remove. That is not brutality, that is clarity. It is the art of mental warfare. You don't need to be the strongest. You need to be the coldest thinker in the room, the man who can pause under insult, the man who can sit still while chaos unfolds, the man who can endure misunderstanding without a single twitch in his face, because he knows a reaction is a gift, and kings do not give away power for free. The peasant reacts. The king observes, and in that stillness, he gathers intelligence. In that quiet, he collects leverage. In that delay, he becomes the one who will end the conversation, not with a scream, but with a sentence that no one forgets. If you want to think like a king, you must become intimate with discomfort. Let silence ache. Let solitude sharpen you. Let the absence of praise become your forge. Because if you require applause to stay the course, then your thinking still belongs to the court, not the throne. There is a saying among rulers, he who owns his mind owns his enemies. But let's take it further. He who owns his reactions owns the world. Your ability to stay unmoved is terrifying. It creates confusion. It creates speculation. And in speculation, you become powerful, because mystery is more valuable than truth in the game of influence. The moment they think they know you, you are no longer dangerous. The moment they cannot predict you, you become a storm waiting to break. And no man dares provoke a storm. This is what Machiavelli meant when he warned rulers to be both fox and lion, not always seen, not always understood, but always capable. The peasant wants to be understood. The king wants to be feared when necessary and admired at a distance, not by showing his claws, but by hiding them so well that every handshake might contain a bite. Power is not in display, power is in potential. And the man who carries quiet potential commands more than the man who demands recognition. So if you find yourself explaining your dreams, your moves, your vision, stop. Let them wonder, let them doubt you, let them sleep while you build the empire they thought was impossible. And when you arrive without announcement. Let the results speak in a voice that cannot be denied. Let the silence carry weight, and let your mind, not your mouth, shape your legacy. They will study your actions. They will imitate your style. But they will never understand your thoughts, because you never gave them the blueprint. That is what separates the ruler from the ruled. A king plays the long game, a peasant plays for reaction. And in a world of fast opinions, cheap approval, and loud desperation, the man who moves with quiet precision becomes untouchable. You must begin to see your mind not as a tool for expression, but as a fortress, walled, guarded, impenetrable. Most men throw open the gates. They speak before thinking. They post before planning. They confess their goals to people who secretly hope they fail. Why? Because they have never tasted power, and so they don't know how to protect it. But you are learning. You are learning that mystery builds respect, that withholding creates curiosity, that detachment commands fear and fascination at the same time, and the man who can trigger both in his enemies becomes their obsession. Let me tell you what Machiavelli knew, and what most still don't. To rule men, you do not need to be loved. You do not even need to be feared. You need to be understood less than you understand. It is your unreadability that protects you, because in the void of clarity, people imagine power greater than you actually possess. And imagination is a far stronger weapon than truth. The moment you define yourself completely, you shrink. But the king? He leaves just enough shadow in his outline to become a myth. And myths are immune to assassination. There is a tactic I have used, one that few notice but all feel. It is the art of delayed clarity. When asked a question, I don't answer it, I reshape it. When forced into a corner, I don't resist, I dissolve the corner. When challenged, I don't rise to the bait, I let the bait rot. Because true dominance is not seen in volume, it is seen in stillness under fire. A lion does not bark back at dogs, he waits until the dogs forget he exists, and then he strikes. You must learn this rhythm. It is the rhythm of kings, and it begins with this core understanding. Your time, your words, and your energy are currencies. The peasant spends them freely. The king invests them strategically. Do not explain yourself to people whose ears are not trained to hear power. Do not open your mind to crowds trained to belittle what they don't understand. And do not lower your tone just to fit in. You were not meant to fit in. You were meant to alter the temperature of every room you enter. But that begins with thinking differently. When others rush, you pause. When others share, you conceal. When others react, you recalculate. And when others crave attention, you master the art of presence without exposure. This is not arrogance. This is survival. Because the modern world has no mercy for the open. It devours transparency. It punishes vulnerability, not wrapped in calculation. And the man who hands over his inner world with no filter is handing over his empire, one thought at a time. You must train your mind to filter for power. Before every word, ask, does this strengthen or weaken my position? Before every move, ask, who benefits if I act this way? Before every display, ask, am I showing strength or feeding someone else's hunger? This level of thinking requires detachment from impulse, from emotion, from the need to be seen. Because to think like a king is to move like a ghost with a crown. Present, but not predictable. Powerful, but not performing. Influential, but never indebted to approval. The man who needs applause is a slave to the ones clapping. And a king bows to no audience. He does not seek to win them. He lets them guess. He lets them gossip. He lets them build fantasies around his silence, and then breaks those fantasies with reality, so sharp it silences the room. There is no power in being an open book. The power is in being a sealed letter, stamped with silence, delivered by action. If they must know you, let them know you after it's too late to stop you. If they must understand you, let it be in hindsight, when your victory has already rewritten the rules, because the true king does not ask permission. He acts, he moves, and the world rearranges itself around his decision. But the peasant, he waits for signs, he waits for consensus, he waits for proof. And while he waits, kings build kingdoms in silence. So let them underestimate you, let them laugh, let them mock your stillness as confusion. And when they finally realize it was calculation, you will already be too far ahead. Because kings do not sprint, they glide, they ascend, they move with the weight of inevitability. And you, if you can master your thoughts, if you can discipline your mind to operate above emotion, if you can silence the noise and focus only on outcomes, then you no longer think like a peasant, you think like a ruler, and soon the world will respond accordingly. There will come a moment when your silence will speak louder than their performance. A moment when the room turns to you, not because you demanded it, but because you didn't. Because while they chased attention, you gathered power. While they posted, you positioned. While they craved noise, you mastered the value of withholding. The mind of a king is not obsessed with being known. It is obsessed with being impossible to ignore. There is a difference, and once you understand it, you begin to move differently. Your words slow down, your eyes sharpen, your presence gains weight, and suddenly people feel something around you, but they cannot name it. That unnameable presence, that is dominance. Not the loud, insecure dominance of a man who must prove, but the cold, silent authority of a man who knows what he carries, knows what he can do, knows he doesn't have to show it unless it's already too late for the other side. That is the energy of kings. Let me tell you the greatest lie you've been sold, that openness equals connection. No. In the court of power, openness equals vulnerability. Vulnerability equals exposure. And exposure, in the wrong hands, becomes control. The king understands this. That's why he surrounds himself not with friends, but with filters. Not with fans, but with firewalls. He does not ask, do they like me? He asks, can they reach me? And most cannot. Because the mind of the king lives behind a wall of discernment. Every word is filtered. Every request is evaluated. Every person is studied, not for who they pretend to be, but for what they truly want. You must begin to see people this way, not as what they present, but as what they pursue. Ask not what they say, ask what they gain by saying it. Ask not why they support you, ask what happens if you rise too far, because the king understands the illusion of support. He knows that loyalty often expires at the edge of your success. He knows that the same hands that clap may one day sharpen knives, and so he stays light on trust, heavy on observation, because real loyalty is not proven in comfort. It is proven in your ascension. If they loved you when you were humble, will they stay when you outgrow their shadow? If they praised your talent, will they still cheer when it exceeds their own? These are questions the peasant avoids, but the king confronts them early, because the king would rather walk alone than walk among quiet enemies. This is the discipline of detachment, a mental clarity so sharp that it cuts through charm, flattery, and false praise. And once you develop it, you cannot be fooled again, because when you think like a king, you no longer need to be convinced, you simply watch. And in that watching, people reveal themselves. Let me tell you a scene. Imagine a lion in the tall grass, still, unmoving, but watching everything. The gazelle thinks it's safe, it sees no motion, it senses no threat, and then a single movement, not a roar, not a sprint, just a shift, and the game ends before it even begins. That is how the king moves. No wasted energy, no loud warnings, only necessary action, at the moment when it matters most. But to move like that, you must first think like that. And to think like that, you must remove the disease of approval from your system. You must train yourself to be unaffected by misunderstanding, untouched by insult, undisturbed by delay, because your mission is not to be liked, your mission is to be effective. And the most effective men in history were never the most popular, they were the most disciplined. Disciplined in thought, disciplined in emotion, disciplined in speech. They understood that power leaks through the mouth faster than it can be gathered through action, so they spoke less and ruled more. You must do the same. Before you speak, ask, does this expand my influence or drain it? Before you explain, ask, is this for power or for ego? Before you respond, ask, does this bring me closer to the throne or further from it? Because every thought you speak is either a seed or a surrender, and the man who surrenders his mind to the world will be ruled by the world. But the man who masters his mind commands it, disciplines it, like a blade, that man begins to rule. Not by noise, not by force, but by sheer gravitational pull. He walks into rooms and the temperature changes. He says less and people lean in closer. He becomes a presence, not just a person, and that presence refined through thought, shielded by silence, sharpened by solitude, that is what makes a king. So do not rush to be seen, do not chase moments, build mass, build depth, build a mind so clear, so calculated that even weakness is exiled. You are not cold, you are becoming precise. You are not arrogant, you are becoming selective. You are not distant, you are rising. And every rise demands a retreat from noise. The man who cannot step away from the crowd will never rise above it. Let me say something dangerous. They want you to stay soft. They want you to stay expressive. They want you to stay digestible, because then you are not a threat. But the moment your mind becomes fortified, the moment your gaze hardens, the moment your tongue stops dancing for their entertainment, they will feel it, and they will not know what to call it, only that you are no longer one of them. Good. Because even your enemies cannot deny your ascent, and when they ask, how did he do it? You won't answer. You'll simply look at them, because the king does not explain, he embodies. There is a moment in every rise when the world tries to pull you back, not with chains, but with questions. Why are you so distant? Why don't you share anymore? Why are you changing? And that is when you know you are close, because the peasant mind cannot comprehend transformation. It worships comfort, it fears distance, it interprets silence as arrogance and discipline as coldness. But a king understands that silence is not absence, it is preparation, it is calculation, it is the sacred space where strategy is born, and mountain that shifts only when it chooses, and when it does, everything below it realigns. Your mind must become that mountain, unshakable, grounded in principle, immune to flattery, untouched by gossip, unmoved by provocation. Because the man who is moved by nothing moves everything around him. This is why the most powerful rulers in history were often feared for what they didn't say. Their silence haunted halls. Their glances stopped conversations. Their absence spoke louder than most men's speeches. And that is no accident. It is design. It is control. It is the understanding that the mind, when cloaked in mystery, becomes magnetic. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them fear what you might do next. Let them plan around a man they cannot read. That is power, not brute force, but mental aces you were never meant to be. A king is not raised in the village square. He is forged in the silence of decision. He is carved by rejection, betrayal, and isolation, not broken by them. And so when others retreat in the face of solitude, you lean in. Because you know the lonelier the path, the higher the place it leads. Let them misunderstand you. Let them label you as harsh, closed off, even ruthless. You are not here to be interpreted. You are here to rule your domain, and ruling requires stillness, distance, and mastery over impulse. Impulse is the currency of the weak, the need to respond, the need to post, the need to prove. But every time you act from impulse, you pay with credibility, and the king cannot afford that cost. He must appear inevitable. He must move with deliberate force, like a hunger crave praise to feel certain. You will no longer explain decisions that only kings are meant to understand. And in that place, that quiet, powerful place, you will see the world differently. You will see moves before they're made. You will detect lies in smiles. You will sense weakness behind volume. You will read power like a script and write your own. This is the transformation no one teaches, because most fear it. Most choose comfort over clarity, attention over ascension. But you, if you've come this far, are not most men. You are dangerous, not because of what you say, but because of what you see and never reveal. And when the time comes to strike, geometry, when they move in predictability, and you move like a question, unresolved, unconfirmed, unstoppable, and the key to all of it is internal. No crown will grant it, no title will provide it, no follow account will manufacture it. It comes only from within. From the relentless crafting of a mind that thinks above emotion, beyond validation, and outside of public rhythm, a mind that does not echo the world, but shapes it. And to do that, you must walk alone. At first it will feel like abandonment. Friends will fade, familiar voices will call you selfish, changed, unreachable. But let them, because what they call isolation, you will soon call clarity. You will no longer need reminders to protect your time. You will no longer